Hit subscribe to the DIY Writer to support your hardworking authors and also lessen your chances of ending up as a victim in their next book. The world's largest UFO conference, Contact in the Desert, announces the launch of their 8th annual and very first virtual event. This event is focusing on UFOs and the year of science, also consciousness and the future. This will be held June 24th to 28th, 2021. Contact in the Desert is renowned for its top lineup of experts in the fields of ufology, forbidden archaeology, government disclosure, alien phenomenon, crop circles, and much more. Contact in the Desert already is the largest UFO conference in history and will now be the largest UFO conference in the virtual world, with over 60 lectures, 40 workshops, 11 panels, featured speakers presentations, virtual tours to Giant Rock, and other interactive events. Go to contactinthedesert.com for more information and get your tickets now. This is Jeff Bacon with the DIY Writer Podcast. And today, kids, we have Cully Mack with us. If you don't know who Cully Mack is, think about The Voice That Thunders. If you haven't heard of that series, go to Amazon and look it up. Anyway, how are you doing today?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm pretty good. We're just kind of discussing time zone differences and being you're in England. It's getting a little late at night there, huh?
Yeah, it's just gone 9 o'clock.
Just gone 9 o'clock.
Yes.
All right. Do you have anything to drink? You have some wine or something?
No.
What?
I've got some cider actually.
Some cider.
Yeah.
Apple cider or?
I think it's pear.
Pear cider.
Pear cider, yeah.
That sounds actually kind of good.
It is quite nice actually.
I have bourbon, but anyway.
Well, if I'm partying, I drink vodka.
Vodka?
Yeah.
That's not very Englishy.
No, but it's fun.
Well, it's fun. You should try tequila. That's funner. Anyway, funner. Yeah. That's the type of thing that gets me in trouble with my editor. What's that?
I said fun. Is that a word?
Funner. No, not really. Funner. I'm funner than you. No, whatever. I don't know. Anyway, let's talk about your book. So you have this series sitting out there.
Yep.
And there's 4 books in it?
Yeah, there's 4 out so far.
Cool. Well, we run through the series a little bit and kind of entice people with a good description. What is it?
Thank you.
Tell us.
Well, I've got the books. Shall I show you the books?
Yeah.
So there's the first one, which is Voice That Thunders, which is also the title for the series.
Okay.
Second one is called A Scream That Shatters.
Okay.
Third is A Fire That Whispers.
Okay.
And the fourth is A Vow That Clashes, which doesn't have the female character on the cover. It runs concurrent with the third book, but is involving different characters.
Okay.
So the series is it's based on Mesopotamian mythology, and it's about 2 siblings, brothers and sisters, who live in quite a secluded clan. They live in a clan that's in quite a secluded location, and their world is basically interrupted when these giants and sort of chimeric creatures come and invade their clan, slaughter their clan, and the brother and sister survive but get separated.
Mm-hmm.
And the books expand from there, really. The sister and some other females are taken over to a different land. The brother is searching for her, and she believes he's dead, so she starts a new life in this new land, and pretty much everything she thinks is going on isn't really what is actually the reality, and it just evolves into huge conflict, huge war. The antagonists, there's several of them. They are immortal beings that came through portals and have been systematically conquering the world.
Okay, so you said this is Mesopotamian mythology. What myth is this based on?
Oh, there's so many, to be fair. So I'm really interested in myth. I studied it quite a bit when I was at university. Okay. I like all sorts of myths, but I wanted to go back to the earliest myths that are known to civilization, because I do think there's elements of truth in myth. We use myth to sort of embed big truths into. And so I started to research the Mesopotamian mythology because it was the oldest written myths we have. The Sumerians had created the written language, our first written language, and up until about 150 to 200 years ago, we couldn't translate what was on the tablets, but now we can. So those myths have started to come to life, and people have, including myself, have started to look at them and sort of embed them into fiction.
Okay.
So that's what I've done. I mean, there are elements of these Mesopotamian myths. You see them in ancient scriptures. So there are elements of that, like biblical texts. They have taken some of the texts because they were in that region. So you can see crossovers in some places, but it's huge. It's such a big topic, and there are so many gods, and several gods have the same god and have different names, so it's quite confusing at times to try and work out like who's who and who did what. And but generally what they talk about are these immortals. In my books, the immortals would call themselves gods, but they're not. They've just set themselves up as gods. And so at some point in our ancient past, according to mythology, Mesopotamian mythology, these beings were around and they impacted on humanity. That they taught humanity how to read, how to write, how to like do farming, industry, metallurgy, astrology, astronomy, all those sort of things. So yeah, so that mythology and some of those gods are embedded into my books.
Cool. So what's your favorite tale of from Sumeria? I mean, the one that really resounds with you.
The one that always sticks in my head is the one about Tiamat. I don't know if that's how it's pronounced properly, because obviously nobody really knows, but I call her Tiamat, and she was. There's a lot of talk about like chaos gods, like either sky gods or chaos gods, and
you don't have to worry about not being able to pronounce it, because once I post this on Facebook, some expert will tell you exactly how it's pronounced. Yeah, it's they'll put it in the comments. It's pronounced this, and they'll do it phonetically, and it'll be like, well, what the hell?
Anyway. Well, they could try. I mean, it's a forgotten language that's been rediscovered. So
not on Facebook. Facebook people know everything.
Well, Tiamat was like one of the sort of like major goddesses back in the day, and she herself and other gods, they created more gods, and these gods that they created were very noisy, and they disturbed her, and she wanted to destroy them. She's a chaos goddess. She wanted to destroy them, so she created these monsters, horrendous monsters, to set them on to these other gods. And everybody was scared of her. She was quite powerful, and some of the gods got together and they called forth a character called Marduk, who is actually human, I believe. And they gave him certain powers, and they gave him a net to capture the wind, and they gave him all these like things, and they sent him off to go and destroy Tiamat, and he did, and it was horrific. It's pretty graphic the way that he killed her. I mean, he pretty much ripped her apart, from her body. That was how the earth was made. It's a bit of a creation myth. So like her bosoms became the mountains, the tears as she was crying became the two rivers. And so that's sort of mythology. That one does get into my books. It's not what my characters believe, but it's a discussion that they talk about how the world came into being. Yeah,
so looking at the title of your book, The Voice That Thunders, so I assume they have some sort of an acoustic power.
I've got different magic systems in my book. The immortals, they take when they're conquering different parts of the world, they take women as tithes, and they train women into this group of elemental wielders, and they use amulets. So there is like this fighting force of female wielders, and it's basic elemental magic, really. They like fire, earth, air, water. But the voice that thunders is, that character is the male of the two sibling protagonists that I have. And the magic that he uses, it isn't actually magic, it's more a case of being able to manipulate matter. So, but he does it through the spoken word, and the spoken word that he uses is an ancient language. So I've made up the language. I've basically butchered Sumerian and Akkadian and some Semite influence in there to create my own language. But yeah, so it is the power of the spoken word that gives him the ability to be able to manipulate matter, so he can call forth thunder and lightning and anything really. His power is pretty much limitless, but it does have physical side effects.
Okay.
So,
everything costs.
Yeah, there's a cost.
Yeah.
I can't say because it will spoil it, but
that's fine.
Even the elemental side with the women, there's a cost to that. It's pretty horrendous, the impact that has on the characters.
I thought it was funny, just kind of going back how you were saying that Sumerian and Mesopotamian, whatever. We all know what I'm trying to say. You know how those influences are in the Bible.
Yeah, they are. That was one of the things that fascinated me. Was there's a small scripture in the Bible that's I took a lot of influence from the Book of Enoch too, but there's a small scripture in the Bible where it talks about these beings coming down and basically having sex with women and their offspring becoming. It's contested what they mean by giants, whether they mean literal giants or just mighty men or whatever. But so there's this crossbreeding going on between these beings and human women, which is in my book. Right. But what I wanted to do was I wanted to look at it from a Mesopotamian perspective, because in the Bible's perspective, and we've got like Second Temple Jewish literature that will expand on this myth. That's all we've ever had, and we've never really looked at it from the opposing viewpoint. So I wanted to look at it from both viewpoints, basically, and get a fuller picture of what the mythology was about and what people back then were trying to say and portray. So that's what I've done.
Yeah, I like how in one translation it's giants, and then the other translation it's the was it the mighty men of renown or something
mighty
like
men,
that.
yeah. And in later texts they would, I think they actually do say it in there, they call them Nephilim as well.
Yep.
In the Bible. In Mesopotamian literature, they call the Nephilim would be called Apkallu.
Okay.
So, most people have heard of the Epic of Gilgamesh. Mm-hmm. You've heard it. And Gilgamesh was like 3/4 Apkallu, so he was like a couple generations down from the initial crossbreeding, if you want to call it that. I don't know. I call them hybrids. So I've also got lots of monsters. I've made them up because there's a lot of chimeric iconography in Mesopotamian literature, similar. Sure. I mean, we see it often in like Egyptian hieroglyphs and things like that, but there's a lot of it also in Mesopotamian literature. So I've not used their exact ones. I've tended to create my own, but depending on what served the plot. So
that's interesting. So in the Dark Side of Good books that I write, I talk about Gilgamesh, and I actually say it's another name for Nimrod.
Oh yeah, Nimrod's from Babylon.
Yeah. Yeah. And kind of go through that. I have Nephilim in my books.
Oh really?
Fallen angels. Yeah, it's I kind of go after that a little bit.
Yeah. So we're sort of on the same lines, but I'm probably coming at it from a different angle.
Yeah, I haven't really researched anything from Sumeria, but a lot of the things that you're talking about, like I studied the Book of Enoch to come up with some ideas. and
Yeah.
some other Bible references.
There's so much resource out there now for that sort of field that it's just like, oh, I could get lost there, to be
Oh
honest.
yeah.
But I
Book
love it. I love anything old.
religious books that weren't included in the Bible, and
Yeah.
all sorts of other documents that point to different things, and it's like, whoa, this is kind of cool stuff,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah. It's fascinating.
the combination of 5 or 6 different religions to come into the main religion that we recognize today, some of the pagan rituals, some of the even
Yeah.
Sumerian, some of the Roman gods, and some of the things that they did to honor them, brought into the same religion. That way they could bring everybody together.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just,
Yeah.
it's really weird the way that stuff happens.
All of it fascinates me. I went to Pompeii a few years ago, and the day that I was there, I can't remember what year it was a couple of years back now, and they were having a horrendous heat wave over in Italy when I was there. And I was on Pompeii, and it was like 40 for me, it was hot anyway. It was like 44 degrees, which I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit, but it was like quite hot, very
Right.
hot actually. And it's just all stone. There's nowhere to escape. It's literally just like hard, you're walking around on hard stone. And we went up onto the plateau, and we could see where the Mount was it Mount Vesuvius? I think the brain's gone.
Yep.
Where the volcano was, and it's exploded, and there's not much. It's still big, but there's not much of it left.
Right.
But the people we were talking to were explaining how they were actually the night that it exploded, they didn't know that it was a volcano for a start, but they were actually doing a ritual to the god of volcanoes, because there'd been some horrendous fires in Rome, and they thought that they were trying to appease this god Vulcan because of these fires that had happened in Rome, not knowing that they're sat on a volcano which just weirdly decided to erupt. The god of volcano erupts a volcano whilst they're doing this ritual, and they were talking about the ritual, and it was pretty horrific. I don't think they were chucking children in it. I don't think it was that bad, but they were chucking like this massive great big bonfire, and they were throwing live animals into it. And that god had the last laugh that day, as far as he was concerned. So it's horrific.
So it didn't work.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. No. But when I was there, you could feel it. You could still feel like there was something watching you.
Oh,
It's
really?
really weird. Yeah, it was really like a sixth sense experience. Yeah.
That's weird.
Yeah.
It's all just one big lava rock now, right?
Well, they've dug down, so there's obviously a lot of buildings that they've uncovered, because everything got covered in ash.
Yeah.
So they've been excavating for years. They haven't even uncovered hardly any of it, so I'm told. But yeah, there's a lot to see, and you can walk around on the ancient roads, which you could still see the grooves that the carts had made on it, and just the way that they did their sort of irrigation system or whatever to get rid of all the water and stuff. And there is buildings. I went into one of the buildings that's best preserved, was actually a brothel. So I went into there, and they had like stone beds. I'm presuming they would have had straw mattresses on them in the day, but they're like stone beds that were built into the rooms. And on the walls there was frescoes with different like positions, because a lot of people, Pompeii was a tourist area for people to go to, and so they would just point at the picture and say, I want that.
Interesting.
They're still there. It's fascinating. And there's lots of graffiti all over the place, carved into the stone, into the walls, and that's quite fascinating, because you get an insight into, like their slang and what they're thinking and what they thought was funny. But
I think it's interesting that those structures still stand.
I think it's amazing.
Even after a disaster like that, I mean, they're still there.
Yeah.
You talk about the ancient roads that you can still walk on.
Yeah.
There isn't a road in America that lasts more than 10 years.
Yeah, I don't think there is here, right?
I mean,
it's all full of potholes.
Ripping something up, or it's full of potholes and needs to be fixed or something like that. But yeah, you can go to Rome and walk on all sorts of ancient roads that have been around for 3,000-4,000 years.
I know.
barely repaired, and we can't put a road anywhere without having to fix it every 5 years.
No, actually, from when I was in the States, I do remember your potholes were a lot worse than ours,
I don't doubt it.
but we do have them. But yeah, I like anything old like that. So I think if I was to start my life over, I'd probably be an archaeologist or something.
Archaeology is interesting, to see the discoveries and watch the shows and figure that all out. I can't imagine it's a great deal of fun when you have to dig for 5 years to find that half hour worth of excitement. But
Well, I don't know. I think if you're a writer, I spend most of my time in my imagination. So I'd be plotting the book, was just dusting off the rock all day. My brain would be in another realm doing something else. But
very
yeah.
cool. So, do you have any more? Do you have anything coming up that you're writing, that you're coming out with, or?
Yes, I'm writing at the moment. I'm writing a short story which is set in my book world. It's a character that he only had one like paragraph. It's not a character I ever expected to expand on or write about. But I've had the opportunity to get involved in a project where as part of an anthology of short stories, and so I wanted to write something that was in my book. So I've used this character and told quite a significant event in one of my books, but told it from another character's perspective. So I'm just in the process of like doing final edits to that, and hopefully that will get published around September. I am writing book 5 of my series, which I think is, if I can manage, I'm going to wrap up the main arc of my books in that book. And I'm also writing a collection of short stories based on quite a few myths, different myths from all over the world, just short stories, and just retelling different myths, but from a woman's perspective.
Oh, that sounds kind of cool.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. It's I think I studied English literature, and when I was studying it, I really saw a lot of patriarchy in literature, and I just wanted to address that really. And I mean, like one of the stories that I've written is about like how like a witch is always portrayed in fairy tales. She's always the antagonist, and she's very stereotyped, very tropey. I just wanted to give her a voice that was different to how she's always portrayed. What if she wasn't the evil person? What if she was actually doing something completely different, and she'd just been stereotyped into this this role to suppress her own voice? And if she did have a voice outside of that stereotype, what would she say? So that's the sort of thing I've done. So I've written a story about that, and she actually was an advocate for other characters that you might see in fairy tales, like Snow White and Rapunzel and things like that. So yeah, so I've been writing those.
It's always interesting, and I've talked with other authors, but I always think it's interesting when you can take a villain or who you perceive as a villain and look at it from a different perspective, and all of a sudden they're the good guy, and the good guy is actually the one that's screwing with them. I mean, it's just...
I had fun writing it. I mean, I don't want to give too much away, but like, have you ever heard of the story of the Emperor's New Clothes? Have you ever heard of that? Yep. So that is her husband. He's a complete idiot, but he's her husband. He's her husband, and she's just been like vilified throughout all this literature. And so she's just telling her story of what it was like to be married to that idiot, and what she did on the side, which he never noticed because he was too busy with his own thing,
being an idiot.
Yeah. And so that's just one of the stories. Another one is about I've written about the siren that was it's basically Greek mythology around Odysseus's era.
Yeah.
So there's a episode in the books where they stick stuff in their ears so they can't hear the siren sing when they go past.
Right.
but you never get to hear what she says. So I wanted to give some backstory as to why she was there and what her actual story was. So I've done one from her. I've done one that's about Scottish Highland stuff. I'm writing one about Enheduanna. She's the first poet in Mesopotamia. So she was a high priestess, and she's got an amazing story.
Really?
Nobody's ever heard of her. She's literally the first ever recorded author in living history. And all of our ancient, like, famous people, that they studied her work.
What was her name again?
You can ask me to spell it. I don't.
Yes.
Enheduanna. I'll try. Enhedua. I'm not sure if it's two N's and then an A. Enheduanna.
Okay.
Like but she was a high priestess for the temple of I can never say this name. Iana. Ianna.
Yeah.
And she got exiled. Her father was, I think it was, I want to say Alexander the Great. I'm not sure if that's right. It might have been someone else. Anyway, she there was a political thing going on, and she ended up getting exiled, and she went out into the desert, and she prayed to Iana to give her, like, basically give her back her status. And whoever conquered the nation, they got deposed, and she ended up getting reinstated back as the high priestess. So I want to just have a bit of an exploration as to what was going on with her and this goddess in the desert. See what
that is cool.
But nobody's heard of her.
But
yeah, be interesting to see what I uncover. I haven't started that one yet.
I think it's interesting that there are a lot of women in history that have been, in positions of power, and they just kind of get glossed over.
Yeah.
I mean, they really do. I really didn't realize this until I talked to another author who was talking about female priests in the Catholic Church and how they used to have them, and then the Catholic Church decided only men could be there at that position, and it was just really kind of weird research project that she did. But it was a lot of her point was a lot of the things that women used to be able to do, and noted for in history, that history was changed by religion.
Yeah.
It's like,
well, there's definitely over the years, there's definitely been society has put the role on the woman of what the woman should and shouldn't do. Luckily now it seems to be like breaking down, and people are getting to choose how they want to live their lives.
Well, a lot of people don't think of Cleopatra when they think about a warring leader.
Yeah,
she wasn't exactly. I mean, she wasn't timid.
No,
the Queen of Sheba.
Back then, though.
What's
they
that?
Weren't. No, I know they weren't back then, though, were they? But I mean, if you think of our generations, we're just looking at it through the lens of westernized society.
Pretty much.
And we don't see how it used to be.
Yeah.
And it's a completely different worldview back then. It didn't have patriarchy like it is or has been.
Really? Tell me more about Samaria, because I've never had any research, really. I mean, everything I've done has been, biblical as far as that goes, and extra biblical, texts and stuff like that.
Yeah. So. Well, Samaria is the Levant region. So it's the region, it's a huge area. I'm terrible at geography, so I couldn't say off the cuff which ancient city is now what the modern day name place is. But it's all in that area. So it's covering around the Middle East. So which obviously does include the biblical area with Israel and all that area, but it goes down as far as Iran and Iraq, Turkey, borders on with Egypt, and I'm not sure what's at the top. I know some of the older names, not very great with geography, but and they say it's the cradle of civilization. That's where civilization was emerged, and there's it was. I don't know the technical term what you would use, but there was different groups of different groups of people living in different regions, and there was a lot of war between them and a lot of trade at the same time. So they were quite often competing against each other, conquering each other, and then they didn't have prisons like we have now. So what they would do is they would take the people back. Their view of slavery is different to how we would perceive slavery today, but so you would read in texts about them being slaves, but basically they were working on
Sure.
building projects usually, because they were obviously building civilization, but they were working, but they weren't the stereotypical slaves that we would say now. But this was going on, you know, they'd conquer them, they'd fall out, they'd rise up. There was all this going on, and in amongst it all, they all had their own gods. They were all like swapping gods. They were quite if they thought that a certain god was going to benefit them, that they would switch to that god. But there were gods there that were the same gods, but may have had different names depending on what region they were worshipped. And so there's a lot of crossover. There's a lot of crossover. In a lot of the myths that I've read, I've seen a lot of things that, because I've studied like the biblical side as well. There's a lot of crossover. So there's things like where you've got like the cosmic mountains. So in the Bible, you would read about Sinai or Mount Hermon,
right,
and all these like places, which is where the gods, you know, they were the places that were unreachable for humans. So they were the places where the gods lived. And so, and in Mesopotamia, you've got the same thing. You've got like that's where the gods lived. Even down into, you can see it passed down into like younger mythology. If you look at Greek mythology, where you've got Mount Olympus, and so you've got this cosmic mountain iconography. You've also got like the tree of life. You've got that in Mesopotamian mythology. And the one that I've looked at, they've called it the Mesu tree, but it's similar. And in the Bible, you've got like the serpent and Eve in the garden. In Mesopotamian mythology, you've got the tree, you've got a serpent and also a bird, and the serpent and the bird make a pact, and then the serpent betrays the bird. You've got a lot of garden iconography, a lot of wild tree. The wild tree you see in pretty much every mythology going, even down to, if you look at even like going into fairy tales and things like that, there's usually a tree. And then you've got storm gods. I mean, in the Bible, in some of the Psalms, God will be described as the cloud rider, or he who rides on the clouds, which is taken basically from a lot of Sumerian and Babylonian iconography. Baal, you must have heard of Baal. He's in the Bible.
Yep.
He was described as the storm god, the ultimate storm god. So, and they're arguing basically. They're side by side. And they're arguing about who's got the biggest gods, because the most powerful god was the god of the sky.
Sure.
So they're basically, you've got Semites and people from other ethnic groups basically competing about which god is the biggest. So
yeah, I find it interesting, like Greek gods and Roman gods, they're all the same, they just renamed them.
Yeah. Well, they're the same gods as this. I would have think some of them changed, and a lot may have got lost on the way, because gods were obviously, they got less in favor and other gods took over.
Yeah.
But they traded with each other, that, you know, and they would have shared the stories and taken what they wanted, and just left the rest behind. But I see a lot of similarities in. I haven't gone in depth into Greek or Roman topics as much as I have Mesopotamian, but I've seen enough from movies to pick out things like the Titans, for example.
Right.
You know, I see a lot of similarities with the Titans and what's it called? Where did they get sent? Is it Tartarus? Or was that
Tartarus,
the
yeah.
biblical? That's the biblical. Getting myself confused now. But you see that sort of thing is in Mesopotamian mythology. They've got their own version of like the underworld,
Mm-hmm.
and where deities abound. They split their deities between deities that live in fresh water and seawater.
That makes sense.
As opposed to like feminine and masculine, and those waters come together, and that's how they create a lot of new gods.
So when you sit there and you read the wreath and you read about all this stuff,
Yeah,
and you sit there and you go, okay, so this is very similar to this, and this is very similar to this, and you have this story. Doesn't it ever just make you wonder, okay, what did all these people see that made them believe this was true? I mean,
I know.
I don't believe that, this is passed down from generation, changed and modified and, so on and so forth. I think there's like this one time period where all these people are sitting around going, and then it's a telephone game of
Yeah,
them all describing the same thing, and it's just in different ways.
yeah. What did they see? I don't know.
But
I
it must
wasn't
have been
there.
magnificent.
Yeah, there must have been something, because it's in every culture. You can trace it back, no matter where you come from, whatever your culture you live in now. If you go back through your history, you're going to come across this in your past in some way or another. So, I don't know.
The one theory I don't buy into is the egotistical theory from the professors that, well, these are very uneducated people and they saw lightning in the sky and they didn't know what it was, so they made a god out of it.
I
And
don't
it's
believe
like,
that at all.
okay, so these are the same people that built pyramids and other structures that you can't do today.
Yeah,
The
I
same.
do think, I mean, I don't know. I try not to get too heavily involved in all of it because I don't know. So I will perch a lot of things on like a mental shelf in my brain, which basically says, oh, I'm not really sure, but I'll just leave that there. And then if I get more evidence, I may make a decision. So I do believe that that somewhere in our history, for whatever reason, we became stupid. That's the only way I can describe it. Though if you look at like the ancient civilizations and what they built and what they have left behind, it's quite obvious that they had knowledge that we lost, and we've almost been relearning it as we've whether that was because of a flood, as the Bible would say. I mean, if that's true, if the flood happened and the population was reduced to a handful of people, you're going to lose a lot of skills and knowledge, aren't you?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, so I do believe that there was a period in humanity's history where we sort of like de-evolved because we lost a lot of knowledge for whatever reason.
I totally agree with that.
We have been gradually learning it. And I don't think I mean, I know that we've got probably more tech with computers and like electricity and the digital side, but I think we've like digressed into a different type of learning. But I don't think we're anywhere near as learned as our ancestors were in some areas.
When
There's a lot of lost
when you watch the
knowledge.
History Channel or something like that, and they say, okay, here's a 20-ton piece of granite that was carved in a perfect square and moved 43 miles.
Yeah.
And sat upright. And we don't know how they did it because we can't do it today.
Yeah.
But these guys were very primitive. Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, they weren't.
Yeah. So they had a whole bunch of people just pushing it across the landscape on rollers. No.
Yeah.
Because they did 100.
I mean, nobody knows how the pyramids were made, do they?
No. They think
And nobody could
slaves.
recreate that now.
No, we don't even have the machinery today to be able to do it. But yet, they're very primitive and we are so evolved. But, whatever.
Yeah. There's a scripture in the Bible, I can't remember where it is, and I read it years ago, and I've never forgotten it. And it says something about there being this, that God would leave a monument on the, and it specifically said where the borders of the borderlines were, that he was going to leave a monument there for the for testimony for mankind for the rest of generations.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember reading it and I thought, oh, I wonder if that's the pyramids, but nobody seems to talk about it, or I've never heard anybody mention this scripture. And it's sort of, and I was thinking, oh, I don't know.
I'm trying to think, because I read something like that. I can't remember if it was actually in the Bible or if it was another testament to it. But the way I remember it was, there's 3 monuments that were built at one point in time. It wasn't by God, it was by people, but
Right.
it was they knew something was coming, and so they built one for fire, to withstand fire, one to withstand flood, and the other one to withstand, I think, wind or something like that, a great wind or whatever.
I've not heard that one.
Yeah. And then they hid knowledge in it. And the only one that, obviously the one that was supposed to withstand flood was the one that survived. But
interesting. This is why I love mythology, because I do think there's, why are we here? Why is the universe here? There's something, and there's got to be a truth in there somewhere, and it's just like I'm trying to unpack it. I don't think I ever would, but I'm having fun trying to do it.
See, this is interesting to me, because now we're thinking about these big concepts.
Yeah,
and it wasn't an hour and a half ago I was wondering why I was out of mayonnaise, but
why you were on a what?
Out of mayonnaise.
Oh, right.
Now we're contemplating why we're here in the universe. So
that's
why this job's so fun.
Yeah. And there's things I don't have the answers, but there's these questions I pose in my books. I do, there's a lot of debate about destiny, and especially regarding the younger brother. His name's Gabe, because he would be described as like a chosen one trope, but when I wrote the book, I didn't really know what a chosen one trope was. And I haven't gone along the typical lines that I've now come to know, and I've basically I've subverted it. But yeah, so I forgot what I was going to say. It's gone out of my head. Totally forgot what I was going to say then.
That's okay. Chosen one trope.
Yeah, the chosen one. He is a chosen one trope, but oh yeah, destiny. So he doesn't want. He's 15 years old. He doesn't want this mantle that these other people are trying to put on his head. All he wants to do is save his sister, but his goals of saving his sister align with what these other people are requiring of him to do. So he goes along with it because it's leading towards what he wants. But there comes a point where he has to make decisions for himself, and they are around destiny. Why am I here? Why is he here in this situation? And them asking these things of him, and he doesn't feel qualified to do what they want him to do. And he can see that there are people that could do a better job, but he's the one that's been sort of given the anointing, for want of a better word, to do this task. And so there's a lot of questioning for him. And also he's coming of age. He's 15. Well, he's 15, 16. I think he's about 17.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of pressure on him from external sources. And the fate of the world literally is in his hands. So there's a lot of deeper themes embedded in the books, and I studied a lot of the culture. So like Mesopotamians, they are fascinating. They invented beer. You've got to give them some credit. So just the cultures in general. I've gone to some strange places. I downloaded a document which originally was top secret, but it's been declassified, and I wanted to look at flora and fauna in the region. The next thing I know, I've downloaded this document, and it's all about all the different travel routes that all the it was an American document, naval document, but it was all about they were spying on different communities in the Middle East.
Oh,
working out their trade routes
Sure.
and how they were going to get tanks through certain areas and things like this. I know, and I'm thinking, oh, this is a bit dodgy. I'm going to expect some FBI on my door in a minute.
Right.
but it is declassified, and it was, I can't remember how old the document was, but yeah, I've had some fascinating I think the internet's brilliant for being able to research things, that it speeds things up.
It's
And
somewhat brilliant.
You can get access to things that
It depends on where you're looking. If you're looking in Facebook for research, no.
Oh no,
Don't go there.
no.
But they have some really good doctors on Facebook.
Oh yeah,
just kidding.
No, but yeah, that's been handy. It's like I've tried to keep it as legit as possible with regards to like what it was like living in that culture at that time, with like regards to the food they ate, the architecture, how they did, how they lived generally. I have had to use poetic license in places. It's, I've called them beer houses because they invented beer.
Yeah.
But I'm just going to call it that rather than have to describe something because they didn't have a name for it.
Huh.
So yeah,
it's very cool. All right. Do you have anything that you want to tell your readers as we head on out of this?
Well, if you like character-driven fantasy, epic fantasy, if you like character-driven epic fantasy told from multiple character point of view, give it a try. Give my books a try.
Do you have a website or?
I don't have a website. I am on all social media. If you search for me, you'll find me. It's either under Cully Mack or Cully Mack Author. I've just set up recently a YouTube channel, and I've just done book trailers for all my books, so that's quite fun.
Okay.
I had fun doing that. I've just joined TikTok. I have no idea what I'm doing. The place is it's trash, but I hear that it's a place to be. But I feel lost. But I've started that. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and those ones. And Amazon. I sell exclusively through Amazon. So
well, when you get rolling with TikTok, let me know.
God, you get lost there, don't you? I've lost hours watching.
I haven't even looked at TikTok yet.
I'm struggling to find the right people to follow, like the authory people. I don't know where they are, and I don't know how to find them. But so if anybody knows, find me so that I can follow you.
I think I think it'll be interesting once authors get on there. Maybe not, who knows? But it's kind of an interesting platform. But I haven't spent 5 minutes looking at it.
Oh, I
just read about it.
Yeah, some of it's funny. Some of it is funny, but a lot of it is awful.
Yeah, I can believe that. Yeah. I can believe that. I'm kind of that old guy. It's like, get off my lawn. I don't want to watch TikTok.
Yeah.
We would say,
get off my land, you varmin.
You varmin.
Yeah, get off my land, you varmin.
Very cool. Well, Cully, I want to thank you for your time today. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And staying up late with me.
Yeah. Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
It's been fun. It's been fun. I am going to actually spend a little time and look at some Sumerian research and see if I can't find just that's very interesting to me. So,
well, if you want, I've got loads of like
links,
PDF and documents that I've downloaded over the years, because just before I used my books as part of my masters when I was doing my masters.
Oh.
So I downloaded at the time because I could access a lot of sort of more professional resource places at the time. So I downloaded quite a lot. So if you want any stuff, I could probably email you some stuff over to get started.
I might take you up on that. I'll send you an email a little later.
Yeah. It's fascinating. You'll get stuck there. I'll warn you now.
I can believe it. I get stuck in a lot of places.
Yeah.
But with that, I'm going to go ahead and call this show a close.
Yep.
This is Jeff Bacon with the DIY Writer telling you have a great day. Keep your chin up and enjoy summer. It's coming, kind of. Anyway, bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
Whoops.
Please hit the subscribe button, I get a bonus for every subscriber, and I only need 1,506 more to become a full-time paid employee. Help me, please.